Hi everyone, how's everyone doing today? Good morning. So sorry for starting a few minutes late again. Just took longer to brew the coffee this morning than usual. I think I ground the coffee too fine, so the drips really slow. So I'm gonna have to grind some more, a little more coarse, and mix it together. But hopefully everyone can hear and see me okay. I think we have a good group here already. Awesome. I'm so happy to see everybody. Let me pull up the chat where I can see it. And we have John and Casper, Plato, Leon, good to see you. Robin Wong, oh my goodness, Robin, how are you? Good to see you. Robin's always, has a great Micro Four Thirds or Olympus channel. If you, if you don't know by now, he has a great channel for Olympus cameras. So definitely check him out. Chuck and David. Oh, hey, David. I assumed the photo walk this morning was canceled because of the rain. So I got up early, and then when I looked out, it's pouring rain. But as you know, I went yesterday. It's a funny story. I I thought the photo walk was on Saturday, and so I got up early, head out there, and nobody's there. So I call David, like at 7:30 in the morning. He goes, no, it's tomorrow. I said, oh. So but I did go out and take a few pictures, and I'll try and share some of those maybe today in the stream. I posted one or two on on my Instagram. Yeah, I'm a fake, right? Yeah, it was rained out. That's too bad. Too bad. Yesterday was beautiful though. A little bit cloudy, but it was really nice weather otherwise. And oh my goodness, I if you guys haven't seen my Instagram, oh, it doesn't have to be Instagram. Let me see something here. Maybe I can find it this way. Yeah, here it is. This one. No, not this. This is a terrible picture. It's this one. This one here, I dropped my EM5 onto the ground, and as it was falling, I tried to grab it, but apparently it hit the ground and took a picture while I was reaching for it. Oh my God. I don't, and it's not my fault this time. I make my own straps. Well, I guess ultimately it is my own fault because I make my own straps, right? But here it is. But I use these little clasps that I bought for key, it's a key ring clasp. I don't know how it worked its way loose, but you depress this little part, you depress this little part here and hook it in, but somehow it came loose. So it was hanging around my neck like this, and then it just slid off. And I felt it sliding off, so I tried to grab it, and that's why I got the picture that you see there. It's just, so I got a new scratch on it, but the other thing is I have to send this, back in the warranty. Now, it's not because I dropped it. It's got other problems. I got it back from warranty because it was shutting off on its own. It wouldn't turn back on after it went back to sleep. It wasn't shutting off. And I'd have to take the battery out and put it in to get it to come back on. So they fixed that when I got it back, but now it's overheating like crazy and drains the battery. So I went through 2 Olympus original batteries yesterday on the photo walk, and I only got 100 and some pictures and 19 minutes of 4K video for the vlog part. But during that time, it kept overheating. I mean, it got hot to the touch here. And of course, the battery draining is another indication. So I'm going to send it back tomorrow. It's still under warranty, thank goodness. I got another approximately 3 weeks left on the warranty. So I'm gonna send it in and get that done. I'll let you guys know how it goes. But yeah, camera's been working perfectly up until about a month ago when I sent it in for warranty the first time. And then when I got it back, I noticed it was getting a little warm because I tried to use it for a stream. And I said, you know, this is kind of hot, and it shut off. I said, I never heard of Olympus cameras overheating. I've never used it for streaming, right? So then when I took it out on a photo walk yesterday and started vlogging, man, that thing got hot and just shut off. So there's definitely something wrong with it. I don't know. I mean, it was working like perfectly up until a month ago. I don't know what the problem is. Yeah, I don't know. I just got to be kind. And the funny thing is, I use the same strap on my new Lumix, my S5. Dang it, almost dropped everything here. I use the same one, and it came loose. So I dropped 2 cameras yesterday. This one, I just got a little scuff on the lens hood now because it dropped like this. Ugh, unbelievable. I'll talk about this a little bit too if you guys are interested. I don't know if you're interested in Lumix cameras or not, but look at this. Look at how the strap just hooked around this chair. If I swung back around, it'd have pulled the camera off and dropped. Yeah, the Olympus Tough. I have one, the TG5. That thing I've thrown across the street a couple times, not on purpose, you know, just running across the street and it flew out of my hand. I don't know why I have so much of an issue with dropping things. I really try to be careful. Now my Panasonic 12 to 32 has new chips in it. I didn't realize the outer part of this lens was metal because it's silver where it got scratches now. And the terrible thing is it dropped on like a powdery gravel type surface, right? Trail. So I was blowing it and dusting it, trying to make sure no dust or sand got inside anywhere. In the lens anyway. The camera I wasn't too worried about. You can just kind of rinse it off. But yeah, Jim Jones, I know what you mean about the rubber grip loose, because when I sent my Pen F in one time, when I got it back, the rubber grip came off like a week later. Because underneath the rubber grip are the screw holes to get inside. So they have to remove the rubber grip just on the thumb part, the thumb grip. So where is it? I just bought some Sugru and stuck it on there. Now I have a better thumb grip. Yeah, Nature's saying he uses a seriously strong clip attachment. I do that on one of my camera bags. I use a double click. I have like the normal hook type clip, and then I put a key ring around that as well. So in case the hook comes loose, because it has come loose on my camera bag, my whole camera bag dropped. So I put a key ring in there as well. So that holds pretty well. Ah, how could you go on a drive and not take any pictures, Randy? Oh my goodness, thank you. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. That helps me out a lot. My overall my YouTube channel and stuff like that is just, you know, the affiliate sales and stuff are way down this month. Last year in October it was way up. It was like my biggest month of the year. And this month it's wow, it's like half what I did last month. I don't like okay. Wrist straps. I can't use a wrist strap because I'm constantly, I go out with 2 cameras when I go out. So I have to have them around my neck so I can grab the one that I want. I can't have one in one hand. If I was with one camera all the time, like when I shot with my Nikon, I did use a wrist strap instead of a neck strap because I was walking with one camera and a backpack, you know, big old 20-liter backpack. That's why I don't miss shooting full frame. And you know, it's ironic because I just bought a full frame camera, but that's for video primarily on a gimbal. That's on a tripod, so I'm not even carrying it really, and it's not for photos. And the photos were okay. You know, it takes fine pictures, but it wasn't like leaps and bounds ahead of, you know, my EM5 Mark III. Jim Jones, peak strap designs are boom diggity. I haven't heard that in a long time, man. That's awesome. Oh yeah, Randy, I know what you mean. You need a new location. I get that. Yeah. Especially when you're driving, because it's, you know, it's like if you're taking the picture before, is it really worth it to stop driving and take another picture? Fortunately, in this area, you know, there's so many places to go. Uh, within, you know, within an hour drive, I can go just about to any kind of location, uh, except the beach. The beach is 2, 3 hours, but you know, I can go to a nice big river, or I can go into a deep forest, or you know, there's lots of national parks and things around here. It's really a great area for photography. I can go into DC and then I can go into the ghetto. I try not to, but uh, not really ghetto. They're just older neighborhoods that I really like because they haven't been, uh, you know, infested by corporations, right? You still have a lot of mom and pop shops. Hopefully they're still around. I haven't been downtown in a while. Oh, that's an interesting thought, Robin, that maybe the COVID is affecting the advertising revenue. That's possible. And Marcia said, "Oh yeah, and Plato bought a macro converter because of Robin's. I haven't watched your video yet, Robin, but I saw you had like a little converter you put on the front of the lens. Someone asked me about that before, and I said, you know, I don't have one. I just use extension tubes. So it's good you got a video, and that's why I like having other channels like Robin and Peter and Jimmy, Joe Ellis to some extent when he does publish. It takes a little pressure off me, right? In terms of helping you guys out because you know that's what a good community does, right? Is everybody chips in what they can, and ultimately you guys win, right? Oh, music! You just got back from Phototrek. Good. Hope to see your pictures. Spider holster, camera on each clip. Um, I thought about that, but I just don't like things hanging off my pants. You know, I feel like it's gonna pull my pants off. Yeah, Surge, go to the Lake District. I know there's so many places. Fortunately, I'm getting out more. I'm not feeling quite as anxious as I did before, even though cases are going up and everything. Uh, I don't feel, I don't, you know, it's becoming the new norm, right? Just put your mask on, go out, keep sanitizer with you, you know. You just have to adjust a little bit and then you're okay. Oh, Jim, you were just in Virginia a month ago and got some really beautiful pictures of the fall leaves in the Appalachian Mountains. Yeah. Yeah, I like further out west in Virginia a lot. I'm not too crazy about Northern Virginia, other than, you know, there's money here. You know, this is where all my jobs are when I go out and shoot. I don't think I would have as much out there as I do around here. Oh, zip ties. That's interesting. Thomas. Oh, Thomas. Oh my God. Thomas Sizauskis. Thanks for participating in the forums and everything you do for my channel. I appreciate your participation. But in the last couple of streams when you were here, somehow I did not see your question. You asked the same because I rewatched the streams after, you know, not immediately after, but usually I watch the stream same day after I stream. And you asked me twice, once in two different streams, about global shutter versus rolling shutter, I think. So if you could ask me again one more time, but I think that was your question. Oh, you're gonna get a new vest. Yeah, vest is a good idea. I bought one, but I haven't really worn it yet. I wore it like one time. Uh, and I wore my, oh, it's in the car. I wore my photo club hat. PCR tests do not mean there are more illnesses, just more cases. Yeah, it's just more cases, right? um, but all the same, you know, it's not about the cases. It's about your personal routine, right? Making sure you keep your hands washed, wear your mask, distance, all that stuff. You know, I wasn't mentally used to that, and it made me very anxious going out, seeing all that, right? But now, every time you go out, everybody's got a mask, you know? Not everybody, but you know, most people have a mask on, and you hope they're also conscious of washing their hands and things they touch, things like that. So, like I said, once it gets a little more normal in that respect, where everyone's kind of into that routine, um, sorry, I don't know what I said, but Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. My God, it's going to go on forever. Hold on. It's really annoying. Alexa, stop. Oh my God. I don't know what set it off, but it started reading this whole thing from Wikipedia about something. Oh, okay, just a general question. Okay, so uh, I looked into it, you know, a year or two ago, right? Because they were talking about global shutter, and they exist, right? But basically, a global shutter takes the picture using every pixel at once, right? So if you have a sensor, like say this is a sensor, the whole sensor turns on and off, just like that. Whereas rolling shutter, it reads line by line, like this. So every shutter is a rolling shutter right now. So it scans the pixels from top to bottom, and that's why that's why when you start panning, you start getting that sort of slanted lines and weird things going on when you're panning with a rolling shutter camera, which is all of them, as far as I know. Whereas a global shutter would eliminate that, and I don't know if there's any other advantages to it beyond not having rolling shutter. I think you can get very high speeds as well. Um, but the challenge is, I think, is powering a global shutter, right? Because you gotta have every sensor on at the same time, or every pixel, and then it's got to read them all at the same time versus in a row. And it's going to generate a lot of heat, right? So global shutters, I believe, tend to be a little warmer running. Uh, but and they're very costly, apparently. Much more expensive than a CMOS, you know, rolling shutter type design. So that's all I know about it. I don't know if there's any other advantages to it, but there's lots of videos online, because when I was looking at it a year or two ago, just as an academic interest, right? There was lots of videos to watch on YouTube about it. So That's what I would recommend is just watch one of those. I don't know if we're close to getting a rolling shutter for consumer use, uh, because there would have to be some significant advantages for it to justify the cost of moving that in production. So I don't know. Yeah, rapid tests. It's too big a problem for me to think about. That's why I'm glad we have CDC and all those guys. I don't I don't know what would work, honestly. I think just good hygiene and you'll be okay, right? Um, Buy another camera from Amazon. And Randy says, just received my Ilford HP5 Plus, so it's black and white for a bit. Yeah, I took some black and white film with me yesterday. I was hoping to see David Tellett, who's one of the photo club members. He was gonna sell me one of his Pen Fs, his film Pen Fs, but we didn't get a chance to meet today, so maybe next time. You finally figured out the Olympus Flex TLR. What a neat cam. Yeah, the TLRs are really cool. It's a very different experience to look down like this, right, at your image and then take a picture. I mean, there's a little parallax error, I guess, if you're too close, but some cameras that have little markers so you can adjust for that. And do I trust the CDC? I don't have any choice, you know. uh, I mean, who else is there? Global shutter also would eliminate the old shutter shock. Yes. But haven't they fixed that in newer cameras? For the most part. But yeah, that's a good point. You wouldn't need an actual mechanical shutter with a global shutter, right? You would just turn it on and off uh, at whatever fraction of a second you want. So that would be another good advantage since you have no rolling shutter effect. I'm curious though how it would work with flash. I guess it would be the same, right? With a speed light, it wouldn't have any. So I guess there's some advantages, but is it enough, right, to justify moving that kind of thing into consumer production? Oh, Arthur's here. How are you? Were you ill, Arthur? I see some get wells and thank and stuff. Oh, well, I'm glad you're better. Oh, the Olympus Flex actually uses f-stops and shutter speed. Yeah, some of the older TLRs don't have stops, right? They have numbers which represent stops, but they're not actual like 2.8, 3 point, or 2.8, 4.0, etc. Sometimes just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A flip screen Pen F, yeah, that would be nice. I don't know what the rumors are lately for Olympus cameras. I mean, I saw some thumbnails for some Olympus JIP things outside of Robin and Peter, but from other people. That again, it's just all speculation, right? They can print a press release, whatever they want to say in there, but what they actually end up doing, you know, who knows? You hope that that's their mission and their goal, what they say in the press release, but who knows? Oh, okay. So you came down with it. Wow. Well, I'm glad you're getting over it. That's awesome. That's awesome, Arthur. I had no idea. Again, I miss a lot of the comments sometimes during this. Not a lot, but I miss some of the comments here and there. because I have to kind of shift through a little bit of the chatter amongst yourselves too, right? Which I really appreciate, you guys talking to each other too. But so sometimes I go a little too fast and I miss a question in between the chatter. But yeah, I'm glad you're getting over that. And as I hear, you know, it's like 99% of the people get over it anyway, which is good. But who knows about statistics either, right? It's like when I used to work, God, this was 25 years ago. When I used to work in a corporate office or corporation in an office, I did statistics, right? And I used statistical software called SAS. I don't know if anybody, I know a lot of you have technical backgrounds. Maybe you remember SAS, statistical analytical software. And, you know, the boss would just say, you know, this is basically what I want to say when I go to the meeting, you know, find some statistics to back me up, right? And it didn't matter what he wanted, you know, you could always find statistics in a certain way that would back up whatever point he's trying to make. So that's why whenever I hear statistics from anywhere, you know, I'd like to know how the raw data, right? I'd like to know what the raw data was and how they parsed it out to come up with these numbers. Because they'll come out with just a broad, you know, 99% number or whatever that number is, but then you don't know what criteria they use to arrive to that number, right? John, you'd say you know about SAS, huh? Yeah, I was a SAS guy. Correlation and causation, I know, right? And somebody said the funniest thing, you know, like 80% of people believe, you know, 20% of the statistics or something. I don't know. I can't remember exactly how that line went. Yep, yep. Mark Twain had it right. But since I have some background in statistics, I have a feel, I have like this, I take every statistic I see anywhere with a grain of salt because I don't know the data, the raw data, no matter what the subject is. Bought a heap LED for macro. Oh, okay. Not familiar with this. Is that a brand? Oh, statistical analysis system. I guess, right? I don't remember it. Like I said, it was like 25 years ago. 97% of statistics quoted are made up. I would say 100%. All statistics are made from something, so they're made up, right? And Randy says, I saw where someone is using high res to scan film. What a great idea. Supposedly takes better scans of films. Yeah. Peter Forsgaard has a video on that. He bought some Nikon adapter that you put on the front of your lens. And I think he put it on the front of his 60 macro lens, right? Because you need close focusing. And just took pictures, right? So you just slide the film in. It's got a little feeder in the front, kind of like my little coaster here. I need to put a picture in here. But you know, this is the adapter, and you put it on the front of your lens like this, right? And it's got a little opening for the slide. Maybe I could use this for scanning film. Just a coaster, and then you slide the film like this in, and then you go to the next frame, go to the next frame, and you just take pictures, and you get nice 20 megapixel scans. Even high res scans would be 50 megapixels. I don't know if you need to do that much on a negative, but very quickly. And then you just do a little inverse negative thing in workspace, and you're done. Or Lightroom. Lightroom would be easier. Yeah, 48.3 of all statistics are made up on the fly. Yep. What's the probability of Rob dropping his camera? Oh my God. I would say probably 50%. Because every other photo walk, I feel like I drop my camera. Because I didn't drop one on last week, and then I went this week and I dropped 2 cameras. Like I said, it wasn't my fault. It was equipment strap failure. Strap failure doesn't really count. Oh my God. Hold on. I gotta turn off Alexa when I'm doing these streams. Now it's calling somebody. Alexa, stop. Good thing they didn't answer. I don't get it. I'm gonna close my door. That's right. We're all professional here, right? Man, I don't know what it is with Alexa today. I bought another one, and it's a little bit closer to this room. That's probably what it is. Yeah, strap failure counts if I've made the strap. That's true. That's true. Oh, I can't believe it. Yeah, look at that. I don't know if it came off just now or if I forgot to put it back on. Well, I gotta send this in for warranty anyway. Okay, so hi Luke, how are you? Let me share with you guys some photo stuff, some pictures that I took because oh, excuse me. And I'll talk about this camera a little bit. So it was my first like photo walk with this camera, and again, this S5 I bought it for my video work, right, in real estate. And I did a little bit yesterday, not for a paid job, but while I was on a job yesterday or day before yesterday, I used it to record some video while I was there because it was a real job. Even though they didn't ask me to do video, I just did a little bit so I could test it. And it goes onto my gimbal fine, but since this camera's kind of larger, my gimbal isn't 360 anymore because now the lens hood, if I take the lens hood off, I think the camera would spin around 360 on my gimbal, but then I risk, you know, scratching the front of the lens, right? Because maybe it doesn't have quite the clearance. So that was one thing. And I talked about the handling a little bit before. The handling is fine except for the thumb. The thumb part here is a little bit little stubby. It should be a little deeper. I'd like it to be a little bit deeper like it is on our Olympus cameras. But handling was fine. And it didn't feel too heavy, but I don't have a grip or anything. Well, let me rephrase. I don't have my Arca Swiss plate on the bottom or anything. So it didn't feel too heavy in the hand, and it's very plasticky. I mean, it has a metal top and bottom, but like I was saying, right here in the grip and all around here, like the middle part feels all plastic to me. Maybe there's metal under there, but but that's fine. I like the button placements. You know, I'll do a whole review on this. Let's just look at some pictures. But it's, you know, it takes fine pictures. But I'll show you how it's really not a big deal, this whole full frame versus micro four thirds thing. And I've been saying this for a long time. For normal photography, just enthusiast type stuff, right? For professional work, yeah, you're gonna find reasons to use a full frame, but let me pull up Lightroom again. Okay, so let's see. I tagged a couple of images here from the photo walk. So the ones that are highlighted red are from the Panasonic, and then these ones in gray are. So I tried to take a picture using the Panasonic and using the Olympus and frame it the same the best I can. So let's look at this first set here. 1 second, let me move this chat window where I can see it. So this is just a leaf on a barrel, right? And so this is a good representation of taking an image up close with the two cameras. And I'll show you the EXIF data here. So we have, 1/60th f5.2 ISO 640, and then 1/60th f5.6 ISO 640. And the focal lengths didn't quite match because I framed them both 4x3. So I framed the Panasonic to 4x3, so it cut off the corners a little bit. So, but ultimately the pixel density is the same and everything. All I did was crop it a little bit so that it got the same framing. But if you look up close, and again, this RW2 is the Panasonic, right? There's not much difference. Now up here, there's a depth of field difference, right? Because of the full frame. So that the Olympus is a little bit sharper because of the depth of field. But at ISO 640, let's look at a similar area for noise. You can see that there's a little more noise in the bokeh, right? This is where you can see it best. You can't really see it here in the detail. It's pretty much the same. And in the light areas, you can't see the noise either. But as I go around the frame, you can see there's just a little tiny bit more noise at ISO 640 on the Micro Four Thirds than the full frame. And then of course, it's a tiny bit blurrier here because of the shallower depth of field than over here. Let's just look here. Yeah, this is just a different focus point. But in terms of color and everything else, they look almost identical. I had them both set to natural profile. Not that it matters because these are raw images. But the Panasonic is just a tad bit warmer in this image. You can see it almost, maybe in the trees, but it's hard to tell on this image. I'm just checking the chat. So if you have any questions about this image or anything as I'm going through these, just let me know. I should just do a video on it, but since we're all here, right, I can talk about it. If you want me to, I don't know. If nobody wants me to talk about this, I can move on to something else. Okay, let's see. Basic. Oh, okay, John, we'll see you later. Thanks. Let's go to this one. This one is kind of a medium to far distance, right? So I would say this was probably about maybe 30 meters at most. No, probably about 10 or 15 meters. About 30, 40 feet away from me, right? And then here, and I had it on aperture priority. So these are both at f4. You can see the exposure, and I did get the focal lengths right this time. 23 on the Panasonic and 12 on the Olympus. And these are both kit lenses too, right? This is the 12 to 60 kit lens for the Panasonic and the 12 to 32 kit lens from Panasonic, but I'm using it on my Olympus camera. And let's let that. But I would say at this range, because the Panasonic is a 24 megapixel, it's resolving a little bit more. It does look a little sharper here. Not by much, but I'm punching in what, 100%, right? How is the battery life on the S5? Okay, and I grew up in the 70s computer stuff. Yeah. Okay, so the battery life was good. I would say very similar to the M5 Mark III uh, when it wasn't defective. I gotta send it in. But yeah, I got through. Well, let me see. I'll tell you because I got the actual metadata here, right? The battery life on the DCS5. So I took. Let's just do raw. So I took 151 raw images or raw shots. So 151 clicks. And I did video, and this is probably, I'd say about 10 minutes of 4K video. And the battery was down to about 50%. So that's what I got out of it in normal use. I probably could have cleared out maybe another, I would say, I wouldn't say I would have got double this, but I probably would have got closer to 300 shots. I would have probably easily got 300 shots out of it more, but video, on the video side, maybe 10 or 15 minutes more if I were to do video. So I would guess in the use case for me, about 300 raw images plus about 20 to 30 minutes of video in practice on a photo walk. Whereas on my Olympus camera, I could probably go 500, 600 shots and 30 to 40 minutes of video, 4K, with my EM1. My EM1, I can go easily, maybe an hour video and 500 or 600 shots before I have to swap batteries. So I'd say, though, I'm pretty happy with the battery life on the S5. For me, it worked out pretty well. In a lab, the CEPA rating's really good, right? I think it's like 400 shots CEPA rating, and people have said they've gotten 2 hours of video out of it. But they weren't doing photo walks, right? They just turned the camera on, pressed record. When the timer runs out, they push record again, yada yada, and they say they got a couple hours of video. But in practice, when you're out walking, turning the camera on and off, pushing the button, refocusing 100 times like I do, oh, the focusing. It's mostly user error, but I did have some problems with the focusing on the S5. Let me see if there's any other questions here. I gotta zoom this in. I'm just gonna check some questions here before I move on. The Canon RP compared to the M5 Mark II for image quality, is it close or aside from dynamic range? Yeah, it's very close. Yeah, I wouldn't sweat it. I mean, when you get to higher ISOs, like 6400 and higher, you'll definitely see a difference. But 1600 and under, there's not enough difference to justify spending for a Canon RP if you already have an EM5. Yeah, the next camera war is for the 999 full frame. Yep. Any color differences could be a result of the lens coatings. True. In that image there, that could be a lens coating issue, the one we just looked at, Arthur. But as we move on to the other images, you'll see some dramatic differences in white balance calculation. It can be corrected easily in post. But the way I think Olympus does a much better job with white balance than any other camera I've used. But that's a very, very minor thing, right? It's so easy to fix in post. Unless you're a JPEG shooter, then if you're shooting with other cameras, you have to be very conscious of the white balance. No matter what camera you're shooting of, if you're a JPEG shooter, you need to be very conscious of the white balance. But in RAW, you're usually fine. And then, Rob, why are the F numbers the same for comparison? Because I wanted to have similar shutter speed and ISO. The only thing f-stop affects otherwise is the depth of field. right? Which we'll see from picture to picture. But I wanted to try to match the exposure in terms of actual physical light hitting the sensor. You know, I missed that a little bit on some pictures, but for the most part, I tried to keep everything at f5.6 and then let the camera calculate the shutter and ISO. So I wanted to get a feel for what it was doing, because you'll see that in, well, maybe not here. I have to take it out for some more photo walks, but the Panasonic tends to underexpose slightly more than the Olympuses do. Not as bad as Fujifilm, but it's definitely a little bit darker. And no editing today. Yes, I am editing today. What time is it? I think at 1 o'clock. Hopefully I set the time right. I didn't set it for 12. I think I set it for 1 o'clock. Oh, thank you, Rob. Yeah, if you put at robtrek first, I can easily see them. Because this is what it looks like to me, right? As I see this at robtrek, then very easy to spot the questions. About a month or two ago, the Canon RP with the 24, yes, was $9.99. That was a killer deal. I still wouldn't buy a Canon RP personally. But if you want a full frame camera, that's a kick butt deal. $9.99 with the lens, and it's a fine camera. It takes great pictures. And Nature says, I think video scene shooting is mostly done with manual focus. Yes, I shoot manual when I'm doing my videos for my professional work. The Samyang 4/3 lens are all manual focus, but the gearing rings, I think, for mounting cameras on a rig. Yeah. If you want to do follow focus and set up a rig with motorized focusing motors and stuff, they don't need to be motorized. They have the hand crank ones too, right? You know, that I don't need to do all that. I just shoot wide at f4 or f5.6, and everything's in focus for the most part. And then Nature's confirming what I said. Yes, for sure, with exposure. Pana exposes lower than Ollie with the same lens on each. Yes, I'm noticing that. And oh, you didn't see the stream? It should be there. Okay. And then Mike says, sadly, I have to go and make some sawdust. All right, we'll see you later. Thanks again, Mike. We'll catch up with you next time. All right, so I think I'm caught up on the questions here. So let's go back quick and look at these images. All right. This one is also kind of a medium distance. And these were, so the Panasonic here was at ISO 1250, and the Olympus was at ISO 400, because the IBIS in the Olympus is amazing, as we all know. So the camera chose a much lower shutter speed to take the same picture, versus the Panasonic chose a much higher shutter speed. Well, not much higher, but double, right? Twice as fast. But by doing that, it had to crank the ISO up to 1250. So even at 1250, though, the noise is virtually non-existent, right? Oh, hold on. Not zeroed out. Wait. Okay, yeah, that didn't make any difference. Let me make sure these are both 0. In Lightroom, it has these presets when you import stuff, so I have to reset everything to 0. So I made a little preset of my own. But again, the differences are so subtle. I mean, we're pixel peeped here at 100%, and you know, at a quick glance, you wouldn't know they were two different pictures. They look exactly the same, right? other than depth of field, like, you know, this little branch here is obviously a little bit out of focus because of the shallower depth of field of the full frame. But and this demonstrates, you know, in real life, what everybody keeps saying about image stabilization in Micro Four Thirds are so good that you can use lower shutter speeds and use lower ISOs to get very similar image quality to anything full frame. Now, you know, in those cases where shutter speed is not an issue, right? But even handheld at 1/25th of a second, this thing is still tack sharp, right? And again, in this case, the white balance is very similar. And the Panasonic looks a little brighter, slightly. I'd have to do the math in my head to see if the exposure is exactly the same, but it's pretty much the same here. But yeah, so this was but this makes the case for, like, why are people spending or not spending money? Let's put money aside, right? But why are people touting full frame so much, right? When you can go around with a much smaller, lighter kit. I mean, this is my you know, this is my EM5. Right, versus this humongous, and I got the extra grip on my EM5 too, versus this humongous, you know, Panasonic. This is you know, I took pictures with this lens and camera versus this one. So similar focal lengths, aperture, everything, right? Similar megapixels. This is 20, this is 24. And that's why I switched to full frame, is because I can go out with a little tiny camera like this EM5 and take virtually the same kind of images, right? All right, let's look at. So like I said, you know, the cameras can behave differently when you're shooting objects far away or shooting objects close up. So we did the leaf, we did the medium focus. This is kind of another medium focus, but this has a little bit more detail that we can see with the eye a little easier. Because when you're looking at a forest, right, it's hard to tell if one camera is really sharper than the other, if at all. So I took a picture of this, and in this case, again, you can see, oh, you can't see nothing here. In this case here, Panasonic's on the right, you can see that it made the decision to expose even darker, right, than the Olympus. Like I said, not as bad as Fuji. Fuji feels like it's a full stop darker. But and white balance, let me make sure both of these are at 0. I'm looking at this saved preset. I use 0. That tells me I know everything is set to 0. So no sharpness added, no color noise, all of that stuff that Lightroom does if you import things directly. But let's just punch in. And let me sync the. I think this was my focus point that I chose. And again, I feel like, other than the exposure difference, let me just crank in about a third of a stop here. See if that, maybe one more third. So the Panasonic exposed about 2/3 of a stop darker, right? And I mean, yeah. No, I mean, and okay, so and you can see the ISO here. We're at 200 versus 100. And I didn't set, I must have bumped the aperture dial. We're at f5.6 on this lens and f4.7, but either way, we're not wide open on either of these lenses, I don't think. But, you know, it looks the same, right? Once I adjusted the exposure, the white balance is exactly the same, and everything. And there's no noise in either image. So, you know, I'm not knocking this Panasonic, right? And it's not like I'm using a pro lens on the M5. I'm just using a little kit lens by Panasonic, which this is a fantastic kit lens. I'm not seeing any difference here. Again, if you just you know, blind tested this, people would like think they're the same exact image. What's the difference? You know, and they're not. They're taken from two totally different cameras. And let me go to this one. This is a really cool picture. This is the last one. So now I got the Panasonic on the left. And then make sure everything's zeroed out. Yeah, so I have 0 on both. But we don't really need to see all that. Now here you can see the Olympus on the right is a little bit warmer than the Panasonic, right? And I feel like the Olympus did a better job in adjusting the white balance. So, but once you correct for white balance, if I do that real quick, we'll just do auto. Do auto. So now when I do auto, the Panasonic looks a little bit warmer than the Olympus, but they're really close. Now let's just punch in to see some detail. And let me line these up. What am I at? f5.6 on the Lumix, f5. So both of these lenses are wide open right now, right? Because f5.6 60 millimeters is wide open. So I think there's going to be a little bit of softness here. But this is where it looks like, to me, the Panasonic full frame lens is a little bit sharper on the long end than the Panasonic kit lens on the Micro Four Thirds. If not for sharpness, then at least in contrast, there's a little more contrast with the newer Panasonic lens. All right. Oh, I see a bunch of questions here. Let me get to these before we get too far. So, yeah, shutter speed is an issue, Lauren. Yeah, if shutter speed's not an issue, like in landscape and crap that I'm doing, I'm not worried about it. But yeah, you don't want to use 1/25th of a second in street photography unless you intentionally want to get motion blur of the people walking and things, which is a neat effect. But if that's not what you want, then yeah, you have to shoot at higher ISOs, and that's where MFT is going to have to be at a higher ISO. And in which case you might get more noise, you know, in the image. And Nature says, yes, Ollie and Panasonic for cameras and lenses, Micro Four Thirds, particularly telephoto lens, are the main reason why I use them. Yeah, size and weight. Randy loves his MFT. Try holding a Nikon F4 with an 80 to 200 f2.8. Oh my God, 10 pounds. Are you serious? But yeah, I remember the F4, man. That's a fantastic camera. And the Mark Will says, I remember, yeah, the angry photographer who keeps on, yeah, blanking on the MFT due to no micro contrast and third pop. Whatever, you know, when I get a, I'm gonna get a GFX one day, but not anytime soon. Then I'll tell you for myself. Let's see, my Minolta 100 to 500 is wow, 2.5 kilos. Wow. And Dave Nelson, as any backpacker, if they prefer full frame or Micro Four Thirds, how else can you say slam dunk, right? And YouTube influencers get larger income in affiliate sales for full frame gear. They inflate the positives and ignore the negatives. Yeah. There's definitely the higher the ticket, right? The more you make as an affiliate. It's just simple math. And Lauren says, in editing, colors will be adjusted anyway. Sony had some bad color in the past, but they too have good color nowadays. Cool images may look sharper so that they Maybe why Sooner goes cooler, Sony went cooler. Maybe, that's an interesting point. But yeah, with any camera that has a raw image, generally you can color correct for it in post. And if you want to get really fancy, you know, you have a whole color profile correction workflow, right? With X-Rite. You can use X-Rite color correction system. You know, they got the cards, they got the software, all of that. The only thing that should sell a product is the product. If only that were true, Dave. Honestly, what sells is who has the best marketing, right? That's just how it is. I mean, if Olympus had a kick butt marketing team, they'd probably still be selling cameras, you know, directly rather than indirectly through JIP. Yeah, I like the IBIS too. I like this image stabilization in the camera, which this S5 has. Not great though. Let's see. Dave says, on average, would you gents think the average stop difference of dynamic range is there between full frame and 4/3? If you want to say average among all full frame cameras, yeah. I would say it's even more than a stop. It's at least a stop on the newest full frame cameras from Sony and Panasonic, Nikon. It's at least a stop difference, if not almost 2 stops, right? If you want to talk about noise in raw images. I mean, I'll have to run a test and see for myself, but depending on the camera, because the high megapixel cameras like the Sony, excuse me, the Sonys that have 45, 50 megapixels, the noise is going to be maybe a stop difference. You know, it depends how you look at it though, right? If you're looking at a compressed image or if you're looking at a I mean, noise is a whole different issue. I think Jimmy, I watched a little bit of Jimmy Chang's live stream from the other day about noise. And, you know, when you look at things on a pixel per pixel basis, yeah, the smaller the pixel, the more noise potentially. But when you have 45, 50 megapixels versus 20 megapixels, when you print those out or you put them on the screen, you know, all of those megapixels get compressed back down to size, and then the noise, the difference in noise is negligible, if any. But that said, a 24 megapixel sensor full frame is going to have less noise at higher ISOs and at least a stop, if not 2 stops difference. And Randy says, I'm on the Verge. Oh, on Google Maps, you got 3 million views. That's cool. I've always thought about posting my pictures on Google Maps. Okay. All right, so let me just let me just make one last point about this image. This is the image I gave you guys for my photo editing stream. Look at this guy down here. I mean, just to give you the scale, right? This guy crawled down these rocks somehow, got his iPhone out, and then took a picture of the waterfalls, because what you can't see in this frame over here to the right, there's water gushing, you know, there's a waterfall. Small one, relatively speaking, but so I'm trying to figure out how he got down there, because if he crawled down this way, I don't, I'm thinking maybe he crawled down this set of rocks, but that's a little risky, right? Because you could fall down here. You can fall down anywhere down here. Especially this part right here. This is not too stable. I mean, a guy like this, I would think a fall from, man, from any distance. If he fell from here, yeah, he would be dead or badly injured because it's all rock. Wow. Well, anyway, I just wanted to show you guys that little guy down there. So seriously, man, just get a zoom lens and don't risk your life, you know? Ugh. Okay, let's go back to the main mainstream here. There we go. Oh, you want rain, Randy? Okay. Oh, thank you, Randy. Maybe you're talking about my pictures. I don't know. Those images rock. Oh, I get it. Over my head, as usual. Peter Forsgaard uses evaluative metering all the time now. He says the mirrorless camera's meter have become moot. I have not seen that video. I don't know what he means by the mirrorless camera. If he's using evaluative metering in the, if he's talking about the evaluative metering in the camera, I'm very confused by that. That's why. Oh, the difference in metering methods. Yeah. I generally just use evaluative metering or center weighted, because if you're shooting raw, it's you can push and pull it enough when you're shooting raw that the metering is not quite as critical. That said, you know, I use spot metering a lot too. So because I do things professionally, so I have to make sure the exposure is spot on in certain points of the image. But for just casual use, I prefer center weighted metering, but evaluative metering's fine. Fill that Star Trek mug. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. And Dave says, thanks for the info on dynamic range. I didn't think it was that much, but from previous ownership of full frame cameras, I knew that there was some difference. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, our DSLR's dead. I would say they are. Anything with a mirror is pretty much, I just don't see any future. They might make another one. Like the Nikon D850 was kind of their last good camera. I think the D760 came out, but nobody cared about that at all. They said just buy a Z6, right? And Pentax though seems to be kind of stuck with DSLRs, right? Because they were talking about a K3, I think, that got delayed for some reason. So in terms of brands, Nikon, Canon, Sony, Olympus, you know, Nikon, Canon, Sony, no more mirrored cameras from them. I don't see any more coming out anymore. And you still adore the 1DX Mark III, the 1DX Mark III. Oh, that's a Canon. Wow. That's a big camera, isn't it? Yeah, full frame would make no difference for me photographically speaking. I just don't when I went shopping, right? Or I shouldn't say shopping. I went to go pick up my S5. And I talked to the camera guy there because Best Buy has like a dedicated camera section. There's actually fairly competent camera people there, not like your usual sales reps, but these guys are photographers. They know about photography. And I talked to him for a little bit, and he was a Canon R user, and he was pushing that camera pretty hard. Not at first, because I was looking at the Z6, I was looking at The Canon, not the Canon, the Z6 and the Sonys, right? The Sonys. I just wanted to feel them in my hand before I picked up the S5, and I didn't see any reason to get those cameras. But I looked at the Canon RP, which is an excellent. I've tested the Canon RP, which I know is a great camera. But they had the Canon R, the R5, R6 all there, and I was like, I don't know. These are kind of expensive compared to my Panasonic that I'm picking up, just for a little bit more. You know, maybe better autofocus, better EVF. They were like double the price, you know, with a lens. So I decided to keep and get the S5. Oh, Bob is confirming Pentax is sticking with DSLR. Oh, you get to use your old Canon lenses. Okay, I get it. Yeah. That's why it's hard for me to get rid of my D750, although I did price out what all that crap is worth. I can get a couple $1,000. I probably spent 5,000, you know, on all that Nikon stuff, if not more. I can get a couple $1,000 back that'll pay for the S5. But that's why I have a hard time selling, because I know how good the Nikon lenses are, the ones I have anyway. I looked at the Z50 there when I was there, Lauren. It was okay. I I wasn't that impressed. I would say, and I'm talking about just picking it up and holding it. I'm not talking about taking pictures and stuff, you know. Um, for 1,100 bucks, you get a couple lenses. It's okay. It's okay. I would tell people spend a little more and get a Z6 or a Z5 or an S5, you know, or save a couple bucks and get an EM1 Mark II or an EM5 Mark III, you know. Uh, Ultimately, it doesn't matter what camera you get. You have to have a good photo skill set and, you know, and take good pictures and stuff. But uh, I prefer the ergonomics of the Olympus still by far. You know, it just feels good in my hand. Even this S5, it just feels like it's still a bit clunky. It's not it's not it just doesn't feel quite as good in the hand as, say, my EM1s. And the dials and buttons are just, it's very industrial. I don't know how else to put it. It's not like a, you know, see, as soon as I put this in my hand, it just felt so much better. And all the dials and everything. This is just in my opinion, this is one of the best ergonomically designed cameras ever. Is this EM1? This thing, it has a lot of buttons and dials, but it just feels like, it doesn't feel like it's one with your hand. You know, it doesn't flow. Nothing flows smoothly. Like I gotta bend my finger over for these buttons. Oh, and then when I pick this up, it's like, it's just, it feels like an extension of your hand. You know, it just feels really good. It's very hard to show that on a stream or in a video, right? The difference in how cameras feel. And everybody says it's all subjective and all that. Certainly it is subjective. But subjectively speaking, for me, you know, I would give this Panasonic S5 maybe a 5 out of 10 for feel, you know, how it feels in my hand. Whereas this would be like a 10 out of 10. You know, it's that much difference, really. Here's an old E500. Let me see. Yeah, this is maybe a 5 or 6 out of 10. This Panasonic, or this is a Pentax. This is a 5 or 6. These two cameras feel a little better than this Panasonic S5, believe it or not. But this, it's just a little bit square, a little bit clunky. Oh, Luke is asking, or let me, and yeah, Dave says the same thing. Nature says, my Nikon 200mm macro and metabones convert it. Yes. Yeah, the size and weight though of the Nikon old glass, oh my God, they're heavy, right? And Parsley says, I recently bought a pen app. I copied your setup, ISO 25,000, default 200. Why does ISO display flash say at 1600 when an AP in low light? Oh, if you're... Oh, that's a good question. You should be... Yeah, if your ISO set to 25,000 in the auto ISO setting, it shouldn't stop at 1600. That's what it sounds like though. It didn't get set to 1600, so double check your auto ISO settings that they are at 25,000, because that, let me just answer this question real quick, and then I'll answer the other question there from Luke. So if you go into the menu, this is a EM5 Mark II. We'll go into exposure, ISO auto, whoops, no, ISO auto set, right? 25,000. Then if I put this into aperture priority, so it's blinking. Hold on. Okay, I think I know why it's blinking. But put your hand. Okay, oh, come on. Oh, here. What I was going to say is put your hand in front of the lens and block the light and see if the ISO jumps up for you. If it does, then you're okay. But if it's blinking, okay, let me rephrase this and put this in order for you. Put your hand in front of the lens, and if the ISO jumps up to 25,000 when you block all the light, then your settings are fine. The reason it's blinking is because it's telling you that it's in a higher ISO range, but also that there may be a problem with the exposure, that it's not able to compensate somewhere, either in aperture, not aperture, but if you're in aperture priority, that's not the case, but in shutter speed. Because let me go back, I'll show you. I put my hand in front, right? But you'll see it'll start blinking. Yeah, once I get to 6400, it starts blinking. It's blinking in this case because it's telling me that we're in a high ISO. Anything 6400 and over, the ISO is going to blink. But what you're saying is that, let me put it to 1600 and see, because 1600 is the default setting. Yeah, now the shutter speed is blinking, but I'm not sure why it's blinking for you. Other than, let me give that some thought. I don't think that's something I can answer right away today for you, unfortunately. But that's where the settings are in the menu. But I haven't run across that. So, Parsley, I'm sorry. Hopefully that answered your question. Why does the ISO display flash? It should only be flashing at 6400 or higher, not at 1600. If that's the case, then it's just telling you you're in a high ISO, and just it's sort of a visual notification. And then Luke Rod says, what is the best step up from the OMD 10 Mark III? Right now, if you want to look at value, the EM1 Mark II is your best bet by far. Money no object, EM1 Mark III. I would probably, if you want to keep with the small size and weight, then the EM5 Mark III. Don't buy the EM5 Mark II. It's not worth spending the money over an EM10 Mark III. I mean, it's a great camera, but it's pretty much the same thing, right? So your best bet is EM1 Mark II or EM5 Mark III. Money no object, EM1 Mark III by far. And yep, Randy's good answer from Randy. And then Henry says, coming from a Canon A1 to digital, go with Canon SL2 or with Olympus? Wow, the A1, that's an old film camera, isn't it? I don't like the SL2. I think it really depends how you shoot. You know, the Canon A1 is all manual, right? Or it has aperture priority or something, but I would say if you like, I would say the M1 Mark II right now is just the best deal on the market for any camera at any price. I would look at that. If you don't like the ergonomics, you know, I'm not being biased, but I love the ergonomics on this. But that said, the Fujifilms are more manual focused, right? If you shoot manually a lot, Fujifilm has better ergonomics for that because they have a dedicated shutter mode, dedicated ISO, dedicated aperture ring. That's going to be a little bit better, I think, transition to mirrorless than maybe the Olympus. But ultimately, I think the M1 Mark II is, you know, I have a Fujifilm X-T30, and I don't like the ergonomics on it at all, so I never use it. I much prefer this. Where's my Fujifilm? It's buried back here. But yeah, the Fujifilm, you know, they have this dedicated shutter mode dial, exposure comp dial. Depending on which one you get, this dial is a little different. It might be a shutter mode dial or something. And then you have an aperture ring. So coming from a Canon A1, you know, this might be an easier transition to mirrorless. And it takes great pictures. It's fabulous camera. I just think, digitally speaking, mirrorless speaking, as far as mirrorless camera goes, Olympus is still the best ergonomically. So go, you know, if you have an opportunity to go to the camera store and hold them, then, you know, put them in your hands and see. You might decide that the ergonomics on the Olympus is definitely worth overcoming the differences in workflow, right? Because you have to work a lot with the menu and custom settings and all kinds of things on the Olympus that it's a little bit of a hurdle learning curve. Less so with the Fuji, though ultimately the Fuji has a lot of menu settings too, so. Okay, I have to go. Great point about handling of the M1 and the G9 is not far removed. The Nolta SRT 101, I have one of those, Dave. Yeah, 890. Okay, everyone, thanks for coming in today. I really appreciate it. I have to go over to my photo editing live stream where we just do photo editing. But this has been great. Hopefully I shared with you some useful information about the Canon S5 and Olympus cameras. But it's been fun as always. Thanks again. We'll see you again next time, maybe Tuesday.